Food service is nearly $1 in $3 spent in a convenience store. And there's no question that it is our present and it is our future. Food safety is something that is 100% of food service, and it needs to be top of mind with anybody who's selling food. We're going to have a conversation about what you need to know, why you need to know it, and maybe have a little bit of fun talking about some of the other things related to food safety. But first, if you've been to convenience.org, you'll notice it's different. Not only do we have a different look, we have a different functionality. We've made things easier for you to find, to organize, to search, all kinds of different capabilities across all kinds of devices. So if you haven't gone to convenience.org, we suggest you do. Also, you'll notice NACS Daily is different. We have a new look for that. We're pretty excited about it. It's all about serving you. Joining us today for our conversation is Amy Costello. She is Director of Food Safety and Quality Assurance at Casey's. She was the moderator for our most recent NACS Food Safety Forum. She is very active in our industry in advancing food safety, not just at Casey's, but across the industry. So thanks for joining us today, Amy.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm excited to be here.
So one of the things, I think when people hear about food safety, they think about like super basic things, like if something's been out for too long, does it need to go back in the fridge? Does it need to be heated to a proper temperature? But food safety is way more complicated than that. Hearing you and others that lead our industry in talking about it, it really sounds like it's food safety culture, and it needs to be everywhere throughout the organization. Can you talk a little bit about the basics of food safety that go well beyond, I think, what most people think of?
Sure. I think you're right in that it is a lot of those basics. I think when people think about food safety, those things that come to mind, leaving food out and things like that, those are a big part of food safety. But it's more than just, a checklist of things to do. It really does need to be a culture of the organization, no matter how big or how small your food service operation is. Because if we think about food safety as sort of a separate thing, something that maybe layers over top or layers underneath, I think it's easy to lose sight of the importance of having it woven through as just a day-to-day part of your operation. So food safety is all about, first and foremost, keeping our guests safe, right? Our guests are trusting us for their breakfast, their lunch, their dinner, their snacks in the afternoon. And, a big part of that needs to be understanding that food is not a no-risk proposition, right? There's risk associated with food, and we need to manage that risk as food service operators. And so food safety is all about making sure that that final product that gets to the guest is not only great and tasty, but is safe, right? It's something that we can feel proud serving and they can trust to take home with them.
So food is such a big part of Casey's business. You said, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And for some people, it's probably Casey's Pizza for all three of those meals.
Hey, we hope so.
Yes. So when you have new employees and they go through orientation, is it by position, or does everybody get a little bit of understanding about the importance of food safety because you're essentially a restaurant?
Yeah, I think for most C-stores, right, you've got multiple businesses going on in the same building, right? We're selling fuel. We've got our center of store offering. We've got our kitchen offerings. I think it's important for any operator to make sure that food safety is understood across the store because we're all interacting with food. There certainly are in our organizations certain trainings that are position specific. Certain positions need more in-depth training than others. But I do think it's important that everyone that's in the store understands the basics of food safety and how to make sure that the food is protected from the time it arrives until the time we sell it to the guest.
So you had mentioned your kids tease you about food safety and all that. Is there anything that your kids, like when they walk into a store, that you just say, wow, I raised you well? They pick up something and it's, wow, that's cool.
I don't know if it's when they walk into stores, but I've got two kids that are out of the house now, one in college and one that's graduated. And I certainly get a lot of phone calls about checking temperatures when they're cooking, or even like asking me questions on, I made this food on this day and now it's this day. Can I still eat it? Can I still warm it up? And I think, hey, you guys are thinking through food safety. I love it.
And of course, for their birthdays, it's like, hey, Mom, I'd really love a meat thermometer or something like that.
That was the first housewarming gift I gave my daughter, was a meat thermometer.
Okay, with Father's Day coming up, everybody get meat thermometers. Everybody needs them.
Get a meat thermometer for the people you love if they don't have one.
So one of the things is Casey's is one of the largest convenience store chains in the country and does a great job on food service and food safety. But there's an awful lot of small operators that really define our industry. And I know that Casey's and Quick Trip with a K and all these others have been very, very active in how, even though they can't control food safety at other organizations, it's important to spread the word and get the word out that whether you have 1 store, 5 stores, 10 stores, whatever it is, here's some to-dos and here's a playbook that you need for food safety. Why is it so important that our industry together move food safety forward or pay as close attention to it as possible?
Yeah, I think the key piece here is guests have come a long way in the last 10, 15, 20 years at trusting the C-store space as a restaurant. We joke in our department, right? Casey's is a restaurant that happens to sell fuel. Don't tell the fuel team that, but that's kind of our joke. But we really have had a mindset shift where I think, especially in some areas where maybe there weren't a lot of food forward convenience stores. I mean, Casey's has been doing pizza a long time, but food as forward in convenience stores as it is today is a newer concept. And we've all worked really hard to gain that guest trust that our food is as good, if not better than restaurants. And we can be trusted to be that source for your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, you can pick up food from a Casey's or another C-store for your family dinner. And that trust was hard earned. And it needs to be maintained and managed. Like, we can't take that for granted. And food safety is a big part of that. So a win in the food safety space for the C-store space is a win for all of us, but a loss could also hurt all of us. Again, guests trust this space now, but we shouldn't take for granted that they always will. That's why we need to do the hard work to make sure we continue to build on our programs, build in the safety. And I think NACS has done a really great job of giving us a forum to share that information between what would in every other space be competitors. We, across the C-store industry in food safety, have never treated food safety and our learnings and our tips and tricks as a competitive advantage. We share it openly and encourage others to do the same. NACS has given us a great space with the Food Safety Forum to connect with our peers and really share that information because, again, we all have the responsibility to protect the communities that we serve. We all serve lots of the same communities. There's lots of overlap. Our competitors are also our neighbors. So again, just making sure that we protect that reputation that we've worked so hard to earn.
And since you mentioned the Food Safety Forum, let's talk about that for a little bit. That was something that was, I believe it was the 4th annual NACS Food Safety Forum. You were the moderator this year and did a great job moving things along. But what's amazing is how it's grown. I'm sorry, it was the 5th, I think, this year. How much it has grown from that first year to where we are now, where there are regulars there. It's a pretty sizable audience attendance, considering it's not the broadest category in the world. What were some of the takeaways that you had from this year that really stuck with you in terms of whether it was conversations in the hallways or whether it was formal presentations that were some of the big takeaways?
I think one of the biggest takeaways from the Food Safety Forum every year for me has been just the value in building those partnerships across the industry. Started going to NACS. This was my 4th year, but you're right, this was our 5th show. And I've learned so much from my peers there, gained so much insight. It's great to be able to connect with individuals that are passionate about the same thing, right? Not everybody everywhere wants to talk about food safety all the time. at the Food Safety Forum. You've got a lot of people who do. So people who share your passion, but are also working through the same struggles that we face as operators. There's, a lot of consistent challenges across the industry in what we do. So having sort of the phone a friend relationships that you can build there, to be able to reach out and say, hey, when you've encountered this, what's worked for you? What's moved the needle? I think that's great. I do think there were lots of conversations around what can we do to make this information even more accessible, like you said, to the medium, smaller operators. Lots of desire there to be helpful and to provide information that makes sense and is actionable for that group, because we recognize, right, I'm blessed at Casey's to have a great team, but not every small operator obviously is going to have an entire department dedicated to food safety. So how can we share those resources and make them available to those operators and help them to integrate food safety into their day-to-day operations as well? So there was lots of hallway conversations around that this year.
And of course, food safety, there's some heavy conversations. And then there's also some light ones. And it's important to build in some of that lightness because, it makes things a little bit, I don't want to say fun when you're talking about something as serious as this. But I think one of the highlights is there was a live recording of the Risky or Not podcast. And if you're not familiar with it, it's Ben Chapman and Don Schaffner. And what they do is every week they dive into some things. Is it risky or not to eat? And I wasn't able to be there for the recording, but hearing from some people, I think the one that stuck out to a couple staff people is somebody said, I dropped a slice of pizza on the airport floor. Is it okay to eat? Did I get that right? And I don't know.
It was actually a breakfast sandwich, but yes, that is the question that was the sort of opener question this year, or in this podcast. And it was such a great session. It was so much fun. I think just making food safety more accessible and memorable the way that they do with that podcast is great, because you're right, there is a lot of heavy information. And even in that podcast, right, they cover really deep scientific information. They're citing from peer-reviewed journal articles, but they do it in a way that just meets people where they are. It's really engaging. It's easy to consume. You don't need a technical background to understand the message. It really, it's just a really fun way to make the learning stick. You could have someone stand up there and walk through the science of how, bacteria can transfer from one type of fabric versus another type of fabric. And you could talk about that for an hour. I never remember any of it, but listening to them talk about that in that sort of funny way, a real life example that had happened to Ben in the airport, it just really makes it stick. And, the humor and the storytelling of it gets people talking and sharing and discussing food safety in a way that is not so, deep and scary as it is to some people. So I think it was a really great segment, really fun. And I think, again, a room full of people that really love to talk about food safety. I think we could have sat there and asked them scenarios and questions all day long. It was a really great time.
One of the adages in communications is every story needs to have a point and every point needs to have a story. And it just seems like in that conversation, when you're talking about a breakfast sandwich on the floor and should I eat it? And it's like, well, is it linoleum or is it carpet? Did it fall face up? Did it fall face down? And then you kind of have the science, because everybody can relate to that. Not everybody can relate to, was it at this temperature or, what was this? But it's, I think your point is we have to meet people where they are. So that's how you talk about it. Because if it becomes too heavy, if it becomes too, I just want to eat. Now I have to think about all these things I have to worry about. Then we might lose people in the conversation. But one other audience I want to not forget about in when we talk about food safety is the regulators, both the state and local regulators. And whether it's a larger company like Casey's or whether it's a smaller one, it's really important to have those conversations and let them know who you are and what you do before there's something. You want to share any advice on what people can do to, because what's the old line? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and why you need to be engaged with people in this conversation?
Yeah, that's such a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. I would say you're 100% right about the importance of developing a relationship with your regulators. So whether you operate a single store or 3,000 stores, um, take the time to get to know the regulators who oversee your store, who oversee your operations that you're going to work with. You are 100% right. You do not want your first interaction with a regulatory agency to be when there is a problem. It is so much easier if you have a relationship, if that regulator knows you, your business, to be able to reach out when there is a problem and say, hey, you already know us. You already know what we're about. We've come across this issue or we're facing this issue. It just makes that conversation so much easier. And you're not having the steep learning curve in the middle of a crisis. So I think there's different ways to do that, right? We have coming up this weekend is actually the Association of Food and Drug Officials conference in Ohio that Casey's and some of our other C-store folks from the Food Safety Forum will be attending, where it's an opportunity to get to know what's going on across the country in the regulators world. It's a conference really for regulators, but a lot of industry attend. There's lots of information about what those agencies are prioritizing, what they're working on, but there's also a lot of social opportunities to just connect and introduce yourself. We kind of treat it almost like a cheat code for us because we've got, we're in so many states now for our team to try to meet with regulators in 20 states. It can be difficult, but it's like, hey, everybody is now sitting in Columbus this weekend. So this is perfect. We're going to be able to connect with regulators from 20 states all in the course of, a few days. But we'll meet regulators in their offices. We'll meet regulators at our stores. Just getting to know them, even talking to your health inspector when they come in. I think people have an idea that, especially when you're being inspected by a health inspector, that it needs to be adversarial, and it really truly doesn't. I think remembering that, the people that are doing that work are public servants who are dedicated to food safety and protecting public health. We have the same goal. We're on the same team. We're working for the same things. So really using that regulator as a resource is the way to view it. When a health inspector comes into your store, if they find an opportunity for you, great. It's been called out, and now you know where your opportunities are, and you can work towards correcting them. And regulators are also a great source of information. If you have questions, if you're not sure, if you're getting, a health department inspection and you're getting written up for something and you're not sure why or how to fix it, ask your regulator. They're standing right there. They're very good at providing basic guidance and keeping it simple to really help operators get it right, because that's what they want ultimately. They're not in there to play gotcha. They want to protect public health. Again, shared goals. So look for those shared goals with regulators and connect with them. They are good people doing difficult work. And again, knowing them and getting to establish your reputation with them before there's a problem is always the best path forward.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you what's the line of messaging that you use, but you just set that all up. So perfect. I don't need to even talk about that. But I think going back to an earlier point and just kind of wrapping things up, you had said when there's a loss in our industry, it's a loss for all of us. And that's really why we all need to work together, whether it's through NACS or through other organizations. Because let's just say in the QSR business, there's say less than 20 chains that kind of dominate. And in our industry, the top 20 companies are, I don't know, probably 20% of the industry. So when there's a food safety issue at a QSR, they'll probably name the QSR. When there's a food safety issue at a convenience store, the headline's going to say convenience store. And that means that if somebody is having an issue, we all have an issue. And that's why we all need to work together on this.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's how the headlines would read, right? And again, we're all serving the same communities. So making that a priority across, all the operators, whether you're large or small, is important. It's a great message for NACS to continue to share. We're thankful that you're using this podcast to do it, and happy always to talk through, what we can do to make that easier for smaller operators. Again, everybody in this industry recognizes that the resources aren't the same across all chains, across all operators. But there are ways that NACS has been working to really make it more accessible for the small operators to get access to that information.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Amy. And also, as you said earlier, we have Father's Day coming up. We don't need another coffee mug. We don't need another tie. We all need meat thermometers because we all love to grill and stuff like that. And, besides the grilling day, everybody could use a meat thermometer. So Father's Day, whatever it is, 4th of July, meat thermometers. Let's blow out those sales and let's protect the food at home anyway. And Amy and others in our industry will do what they can to protect the food that we sell. So thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.